Welcome to the commodious office of Diesel Review. Since I spend most of my time on the road, I don't really need a big place to do video editing and writing, and I do all I can to produce things for you, my subscribers. But I've been getting a lot of feedback lately regarding this Volkswagen Dieselgate TDI scandal, courtesy of EPA. And it's been a couple days, and I want to give you some of my feedback. Firstly, I used to grow up in Los Angeles, and, well, actually I did grow up, but I used to live in Los Angeles. And I've been through several major earthquakes, and this whole situation feels like an earthquake. It just sort of shakes the room, and you go, holy, what was that? And then it takes time to actually go outside and assess the damage, check the building, look for gas leaks, that kind of stuff, and sort of hunker down and make sure everything's okay. So that's what has gone on here. A huge shift has happened, and unfortunately, tools at Jalopnik have been link baiting a lot of people into reading more and more of their filth about if you have a TDI, what should you do? The answer is nothing. So let's back up a little bit and talk about EPA. I used to work at EPA. I was a contractor from 2012 to 2013 under the good old days of Lisa Jackson. You should go look her up. She's got quite the history. Even though she left under the auspices of the Keystone Pipeline, she herself was caught using a personal email for government use, a lot like someone else we know. And actually, they were releasing emails to the tune of thousands per day. That's how much email she used outside of government effort. And even though they still haven't really come clean on that, pun intended, Volkswagen at least apologized and owned up to the fact that they were caught preparing for a test. So, what does this really mean if you own a TDI, or if you're looking at a TDI? Well, firstly, I can tell you my views have gone up. My subscribers have gone up ever since this scandal was released on Friday. Is it a scandal? Well, I don't know. Some people claim that high schools only train and educate their students to an exit exam, and I don't see the difference here between Volkswagen preparing software for a bench test. As a software engineer, you go through QA processes and you have a software lifecycle, and you always want to meet those benchmarks according to your time span or your milestones in the project. So I can't really talk about what Volkswagen did because we don't know. Under the Digital Millennium Copyright Act, we don't get to see the source code, and we never will. So you can speculate all you want, like a tool at Jalopnik, or you can just wait and let things bubble up to the surface properly. As far as I know, I had an Audi A6 TDI scheduled for a press event, and it was canceled. It's probably because I envision TDI being wiped off the face of the earth. We will still have diesel cars, but the TDI nomenclature is going to disappear. That's a speculation on my part, but it only makes sense in the corporate marketing world to just completely wipe the surface clean and start with something fresh. So as far as other TDI models that are based on the V6 engine, which are not impacted by this EPA press release, I don't think there's anything to fear. If you own the 4-cylinder TDI, prepare to be bombarded with proposals and buyers who want to give you money for your car at bottom dollar. Why would they do that? Do they just want the deal? Are they bargain hunting? Or are they secretly trying to protest EPA? Well, that's up to you to decide. I think I know what I would do at this point. I would rush out and buy a TDI if I could. Because a protest is what we're still allowed to do. In retrospect, though, what Volkswagen did was very bad, and it made them look like a charlatan. But let's not forget that the EPA is full of charlatans too. So, going forward, I'm not going to discuss this any further. I'm just going to let the facts lay where they are. Let the house of cards collapse if it must. But what I do know is that diesel is the future. Because if you do pull all these TDIs off the market, you have lost a car that has a range of going up to 700 miles on a tank. And what better thing to do than limit your mobility, right? So without being able to go as far on one tank, especially when diesel prices are really coming down, it's just very suspicious timing. And I don't like that, especially from collusionists. So if you think about it, on a global level, what VW did was very wrong. But what EPA did still doesn't justify their actions, especially when you look at other things they've done in the past. And this brings me to a point. EPA doesn't like NOx because NOx is just an umbrella term. The umbrella term for nitrogen oxides covers many different aspects of pollution, which they claim is part of ozone. So when you look at what the EPA is really pissed off about, it's not only preparing someone to pass a test, like the Volkswagen has done, which is pass a test. It's also the fact that the EPA cannot manage nitrogen oxides. The EPA cannot export NOx. That's why hybrid electric vehicles are more popular with EPA, because EPA has programs in place called e-waste recycling. And it's very easy for the EPA to export e-waste to India or China and wipe their hands clean of that pollution. However, the EPA cannot wipe their hands clean of NOx. We cannot export NOx. Even though NOx happens to create ozone, and that ozone can last for a few days and die off, and even though NOx elements are water soluble, and they do have a lifespan of a certain period of time, the fact is that it really depends on where the wind blows. And EPA is not happy with that because they cannot manage wind. Even though they seem to produce a lot of it, one thing they cannot do is regulate it, which makes them want to have a fine. Fines are easy. Money is easy. It's just a matter of paying the bill. But when it comes down to all the justifications for that bill, how do you sell a Volkswagen at $24,000 and then levy a fine of $37,500 against it? That seems like a bad business decision, right? So going forward, I think TDIs may exist in the market in a different name, and they will not exist in the four-cylinder realm. So look forward to more luxury cars, more $100,000 cars with insanely powerful diesel engines that do meet emissions requirements full time. That's what BMW is claiming with their X5. That also makes me wonder about something else, which is when the EPA's NGO did that little test on four-cylinder Volkswagen diesels, they compared it to an X5 from BMW. X5s have six-cylinder diesel engines. Why didn't they just compare it to an A6 TDI? Makes me wonder. Oh, actually, why didn't they just compare it to a 328D, a four-cylinder diesel from BMW that they sell in the States? Nothing's really making sense at this point, and I think that's on purpose. It's part of the strong-arming at EPA. They do it very well. They're quite effective at it, because all it takes is money. Which brings me back to another point. You can read Truth About Cars, you can watch the Fastlane Car on YouTube, and you can go through all those comments. You could even go through some comments from people at Jalopnik. But what you will notice is certain aspects are all related down to campaign money. No. Whoever comes up with that nonsense is a complete jackass. This is America. We don't get things done with campaign money. What are you thinking? The fact is, these cars were certified, and then certification was pulled for 2016 for four-cylinder TDI Volkswagens. They got here in the first place because they actually did pass emissions testing. The problem is the software. So if they just basically unwind that algorithm and inject software that runs at 100% standard compliant for all time on all those i4 cars, then what we end up having is no issues at all. If you own a TDI, there's nothing wrong with it. And at the least, they're just going to give you a software update. And if the software update fails or produces less power, I'm sure part of that will be a part of increased boost from your turbo. The real fix would be to double loop an EGR system in there, or have a bigger EGR with water cooling, like they do on the V6 TDIs. But I don't want to speculate. It's all speculation, it all gets out of hand, it all gets blown out of proportion. But what I do know is that if you bought a Jetta TDI, you shouldn't have bought a Jetta in the first place. But it looks like the Jetta TDI is the one that actually offends the most. And seeing how they totally charlataned that car ever since they came in with the new model of 2011, I don't look forward to seeing TDI Jettas in the future. It's not going to happen. That's at least my speculation. The Golf will stay, but that's just about it. And the Touareg is still a V6. And then as far as the Audi A3 TDI, that can go away. We don't need that either. But this is a beautiful thing, because the new A4 won't be getting the 4-cylinder diesel. It means it must get the V6 diesel. So if you think about it, this is a way to wipe the planet of all the small diesel cars, all the economic competitive cars that people probably shouldn't be buying anyway. And we'll now be focusing on more high performance oriented diesels with larger engines that do meet emissions requirements full time, like BMW does, or claims to. And going forward, you'll just see more of that. Larger, more expensive diesels to compete against old, antiquated V8 engines that are now adopting diesel technology anyway. Anyway, I'm just rambling on. And this is not really a diatribe or a political manifesto, but I've got skin on both sides. I've had VW press cars, I've worked at EPA. All in all, they're both charlatans, but at least one came clean. So to sum it all up, thanks for watching.